All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the wild and, honestly, pretty complex story behind one of hip-hop's most iconic dances. We're talking about a journey that literally goes from the streets of Compton all the way to the Super Bowl stage. So it all kicked off with this one moment that millions of people saw live. Remember the 2022 Super Bowl halftime show? West Coast legend Snoop Dogg gets up there and does a few very specific steps. And boom, the internet just exploded.
So what was the big deal? Well, this was not just any dance. And to really get why those few steps had so much meaning, so much weight, we've got to rewind all the way back to the beginning.
Okay, let's get into it. The C-Walk, it didn't start out as entertainment. Not at all. It was more like a secret code, a whole language spoken with your feet. So picture this. It's the 1970s, on the streets of Compton, California. This is where the Crip Walk was born, created by members of the Crips gang. And you've got to understand, it was so much more than just a dance. Think of it like a secret sign language, but with your feet, a way to get across some pretty complex stuff without ever saying a word. And it had a few really important functions, right? First, it was a way to show where you stood, who you were with, a display of loyalty. Second, they would use this really detailed footwork to actually spell out words, like C-R-I-P. And third, and this is wild, it was used to disrespect rivals. They'd spell out the name of an enemy gang and then literally cross it out on the ground with their feet, a symbolic erasure.
But, something this powerful, this unique, it was never going to stay a secret forever. It was only a matter of time before it started its long and honestly really complicated journey into the mainstream.
And when it hit fast. So it starts in the 70s, right? By the 80s, West Coast rappers are picking it up. Then the 90s hit, and guys like WC and Snoop Dogg are putting it in music videos, and suddenly everyone's seeing it, but all that popularity had a downside. By the 2000s, you had places like MTV and a ton of schools outright banning the dance. They were worried about its connection to gang violence. And this is really the key thing to grasp here. This popularization created a huge clash. For the guys who created it, this wasn't just a dance. It was part of their identity, something almost sacred. But for the rest of the world, it was just cool entertainment. And that tension, it forced the dance to change. Yeah, that tension actually caused the dance to split into two different things, creating this really important distinction that, honestly, we still need to understand today.
So, with the original C-Walk getting banned and censored left and right, something new had to happen. And it did. A new style popped up, one that was explicitly not tied to any gang. The whole point was to keep the amazing footwork, but ditch the gang affiliation so it could just be about performance.
And look, these two styles are worlds apart. The original, the OG Crip Walk, it's slower, more intentional. It's all about that ritual and communication. You'd even see hand gestures. But the Clown Walk, that's pure entertainment. It's fast, it's energetic, and it's all about showing off your athletic skill with your feet. No gang signs, just dance.
But here's the thing. Even with this new version, the dance's roots, its history, that's continued to cause a ton of debate, a lot of controversy, especially when it shows up on a huge global stage.
And a perfect example of this, tennis legend Serena Williams. It's the 2012 London Olympics. She just won a gold medal, and she does this quick, super joyful victory dance right there on the court.
Well, almost immediately, some media outlets jumped on it, calling it a Crip Walk. And just like that, a media firestorm erupted. People were debating whether it was appropriate, especially at a place like Wimbledon.
Serena's response? She said she had no idea that's what it was called. No clue about the history. It was just a dance to her. And that right there, that just perfectly shows the massive cultural gap between where the C-Walk came from and what it's become to many people. Just a cool-looking victory dance.
And that's what brings us right back around, full circle, to Snoop Dogg at the Super Bowl. See, his performance wasn't just a few dance steps. It was a statement. For a whole lot of people, that was a moment of reclamation. Taking a piece of Compton culture that was once banned and totally misunderstood, and then putting it on display, proudly, for the entire world to see.
And look, this whole idea of reclaiming the dance, it's part of a much bigger trend. You have artists like Kendrick Lamar who are now intentionally using both the Crip Walk and the rival Blood Walk together in the same performance. Think about that. It's not about division anymore. It's about bridging that gap and celebrating a shared West Coast heritage.
So, this all leaves us with one last big thought. The journey of this dance is just incredible, isn't it? It went from a coded message on a Compton street corner to a viral TikTok trend. It really makes you wonder, how are we going to define this dance tomorrow? Because if this story teaches us anything, it's that the meaning of culture, it never, ever stands still. It's always evolving.